Shabbos on a bright note about people dying and inheritances. So the last thing we said, just to review quickly, was that a person is dying, a shchimera is dying, and he says he wants that somebody owes him money, and can the witnesses there write it down or not? So I don't think I pointed this out, but it's actually, the Gemara has two opinions. So the first opinion was Rav Meir and the Chachamim, and Rav Meir said that you could write it down even if you don't know about the deal. You could write it down, and therefore, when the Yoresh, the inheritor, he can go to Bezdin, but he's going to have to bring another proof with him. The document's not enough because the witnesses were just recording the events, but they didn't look into it at all. And the Chachamim argued, and they said, no, you can't write it down unless you actually know about it. Therefore, if this document comes up, you could use it to collect. Now, Rav Nachman said, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Li Huna, just going back like 7-8 lines before the Mishnah quickly, he has a different version. I don't think I glanced over this. He had a different version. He says, Rav Meir Omer Ein Kosin. It's a different version. Rav Meir says you cannot write it. That which we just said in the name of the rabbis, he has a version that Rav Meir said you cannot write it. And Chachamim say you could write it. The Chachamim allow you, they're lenient, and Rav Meir is the strict one. On that, the Gemara said, V'af Rav Meir la'amar ela mishum based in Tomen. Rav Meir only said that you're not allowed to write this down because if this document shows up, in general, when you have a document with witnesses, it means that it's been looked into. The Gemara Ksuba says that when you have a document with witnesses, it's been checked into. So the next Bezdin might make a mistake and use this document to collect with, but this document was the document of a shchimera, of someone who's dying, and as a special, that breaks the rules. So Rav Meir said we don't allow. That's why he doesn't allow it. Now, on that, we're asking a question. Amar Rav Dimi ben Harda Hilchasa ein choshishin. So he said the halacha is we're not worried. We are not worried about a bezdin making a mistake. So therefore, the halacha would accord with the one who holds that you could write it down. Maybe you're worried bezdin will make a mistake. We're not worried about bezdin making a mistake. They'll get the document. They'll see this guy was dying. They'll look into it. They'll make sure that the money is given properly. Fine. Now we're asking, Umay Shnami de Rava. So Chalitza, right? The lady's husband dies, and now the brother-in-law can do Chalitza or Yibam. So if you do Chalitza, you have to do it in front of a Bezdin. Now, that Bezdin has to know that these two people are connected, right? To allow this chalitza. And now witnesses are watching. Witnesses don't know what's happening. They're watching it, and they trust that the Bezdin knows. Or a girl was married off by her father, not by her father. Her father died, and he could not marry her off, and she was still under 12 years old. Her sister or brother married her off to somebody. However, what is that? Her mother. Thank you. Her mother. Yeah, not her sister. Yeah, thank you. Her mother or her brother married her off, and now at 12 years old, she can decide to opt out. If she opts out, it's called miyun. Miyun literally means rejection. She can reject it. That also has to be done in front of a bezdin who knows that she was once married. And now witnesses are here documenting this, both cases. So we say, Ein chotz elim kein makirin. Bezdin has to recognize these people. The ein memaden elim kein makirin. And bezdin has to recognize before allowing chalitza or miyun to go through. Therefore, since Bezdin can only go through with this if they are aware of the circumstances, you're allowed to write lefikach. Therefore, kosvin get chalitza, they get mian. Therefore, you can produce a document stating there was a chalitza here, there was a mian here, and you can present it for your next husband. Look, don't worry, I'm already out of that relationship. That's when I was 11. Now I'm already 12 and a half. You don't have to worry. Yeah. So or a chalitza. The afalpi. Yeah, the get mian. So lefika kos and get chalitza, we get mian, but afal pisha ein makirin. So the afal pisha ein makirin, it sounds like so in this case, as long as Bezdin knows, it's fine. The witnesses witnessing it, they don't have to know anything. So we allow the witnesses to write down these documents, even though they don't know what's going on. Why? Because we trust Bezdin. We trust Bezdin that Bezdin knows what's going on. One second. Yeah. So now we're asking, before we said the halachas that we're not worried about a Bezdin. What's wrong with the gears here? I don't know. Before we said that we're not worried about a Bezdin, the halacha was that we're not worried about a Bezdin making a mistake. But here we're saying it sounds like they have to know. Elim Kain Makirin. So okay, I don't know. Yeah, so on that the Gemara answers Mishum de Choshen lebezdin Mishum de Choshen lebezdin Toin lo. So Bezdin Basar Bezdina lo daiki, Bezdin Basar Edim daiki. So one Bezdin after another Bezdin is yeah, okay. I'm gonna read it the way the Rashbam says it. I don't know exactly how the words, but it says that the Bezdin has to know about this chalitza because the next Bezdin is not going to go look into the previous Bezdin. They're going to assume if Bezdin allowed this to go through, obviously they know what's going on. So we're not worried. So therefore, but we have to make sure that Bezdin is going to, they're going to have to know. Because let's say you would allow a chalitza, even if Bezdin didn't know. So what would happen? If Bezdin didn't recognize the people, but hard to imagine like such a case. Like, well, how would that work? Bezdin doesn't recognize it, but they both want a chalitza, so Bezdin would do it. Yeah, I guess it could work. So now, okay, like this. So since Bezdin is a very trustworthy entity, right? Mm-hmm. So if we allowed a chalitza when Bezdin does not recognize the parties, the next Bezdin would make a mistake because they would trust the previous Bezdin. It wouldn't assume that they didn't know the parties. And therefore, that's why we make sure that the Bezdin has to know exactly that he was once married to her, or that he's now in a state of or that he, that he was married to, that his brother was married to her. So they have to know that, because if they didn't know that and we allow that to go through, so then the next Bezdin is not going to be worried that the previous Bezdin didn't know. They're going to trust Bezdin. Therefore, we're extra strict. However, but Bezdin Basar Eidim Daiki. When it comes to witnesses, so there we're not worried. There we're not as worried, because when it comes to witnesses, we're not just going to trust them and they're going to make a mistake. They'll look into it. A document shows up. Who are these people on the document? Okay, Bezdin will look into it. But if you have a star, a document saying Bezdin A allowed this to go through, so Bezdin B is not going to necessarily go and look into it. So we're more strict by Bezdin to make sure that they know about this. When it comes to witnesses, in our case of a guy dying, so that Bezdin is not going to assume, well, it must be two really valid witnesses. It's probably the two greatest rabbis of the generation. Then they will look into it and hopefully not make a mistake. So at the end, yeah.
I think what Rabbi Dovid is saying basically, why they're not concerned about the Betin making a mistake is because the Betin will interrogate the witnesses and rule. So the next Betin will have a reliable ruling.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Rabbi Meir is, I think, talking on the first Betin.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, are they?
It's close, yeah.
I think Rabbi Meir is saying on the first Betin that if they don't check the witnesses, then
we're in trouble. Yeah. Okay, so fine. So that was that. Okay, let's make up some lost time. So ha'av tolish umachil lechol mi sheyirtza umashiniach tolish harei hu shel yorshin. Okay, so we're talking about the father who's writing the will for his son, or not a will. He's giving over his property to his son. So from today he gets the title, and after death he gets to eat the peiros. So therefore the father, any fruit that's plucked off the tree, the father could for sure eat, because the fruit still belonged to him. But whatever he leaves over that's attached to the ground when he dies, even though the fruits are about to come off the tree, they're fully ripe. As long as it's attached to the tree, that's considered part of the property, and that's going to be inherited over to the son. So once again, ha'av tolush. So ha'av tolesh u'makeh l'chol mi shirtzeh. Anything plucked, give to whoever you want. U'ma shehiniach tolush, that which remains attached, harehu shel yorshin. That goes to the yorshin, because it's like part of the ground. It's part of the field, and therefore they're going to get it. Yeah. Okay. So now, says the Gemara, Talashin mechuber lo. Is that really true? That only property that's been removed, is really the father's, but the part that's attached to the ground, that's going to go only to the son. I guess let's say in the event that he I don't know, I guess let's say he wanted to give some property over to somebody else. If it's attached to the ground, he didn't have a right to do that. Once he dies, anything attached to the ground goes to the son. Nobody else could have a claim on it. Yeah. Okay. So Talish in Mechuber Lo, is that really true? V'hatanya. So what's the case here? Shamanes HaMechubarim Lilokeach. So now what happened over here? The son who's going to get the usage of the property sold that in the life of the father. He went and he sold it to a third party. So now what happens? So the part that was so now he sold to a third party. The problem is he doesn't have any rights to it, really, as long as the father's alive. So what happened? What do? You estimate now. So the property that was attached to the ground, the son only receives once the father dies. So that which he sold to the guy, so you look at it and you evaluate the property that was attached to the ground, and basically you say that he has to go and pay him back the money for that. Therefore, what does that mean? Therefore, that means that the property that's attached, the son never had rights to, and therefore the person who bought it never had rights to it either. And this is even when the father dies. So when the father dies, even the property that was attached to the ground has to be paid back to the son. But the question is why? If the son deserves, he inherits the property that's attached to the ground. So therefore, when the father dies, now that property retroactively should really be the son's, the attached property. Therefore, the sale should go through. So why does the buyer have to pay back to the son? Sounds like even property that might be attached to the ground doesn't go to the son. He only gets the son only had right. The father wrote to the son, the property is yours today. The usage is going to be after I die. So what's yours today? So the son goes and sells whatever is his today. Well, and now the father dies. So we're saying that the property attached to the ground sounds like it's not considered part of the ground. If it was part of the ground, so therefore, just like the son owns the ground, the attached fruits of it, right? Not just the land, but the trees that grow on the land should also have been sold. It sounds like the trees, anything that grows from the ground, even though it's still attached to the ground, is considered peiros. It's considered usage. And the usage is only going to be his after the father dies. And if he sold it earlier, it's not going to be a good sale. Says the Gemara, lo kasha. It's not a kasha, it depends. Kan bim beno, kan be'acher. Ho v'daito shel adam, krova eitzel beno. So it depends. When the father is giving property to the son himself, so then he's giving the son not only the land today, but anything which is mechuber, anything which is attached to the ground. That's yours today. The removed fruits, anything which is removed from the ground, is going to be mine until I die. Right? The ground is yours today, and the usage is yours tomorrow after the guy dies. What does usage mean? How do you view it? So if it's apples off the tree you can use for your house, that's considered usage. You can take the apples home and you can sell them and cook them and do whatever you want with them. But if they're still attached to the tree, so to use them, you're going to have to take them off the tree. So and they're ready to come off the tree. So is that considered usage or is that considered the field? So that we're saying when you're writing to your son property, you're much more lenient. You're much more willing to give him more. So even the attached property is considered part of the property, and that'll go to the son. But when the son's going and selling it to somebody else, that the father never wanted the son to do. So he never had in mind to give the son attached property to sell to somebody else, just to give over to him. So that's how we're going to answer these two, the Mishnah and the Brisa. Yeah. So therefore, the father's not going to be able to give away attached property. The father writes, from today, the property is yours, and the fruits are yours after I die. That's why the Mishnah says he only can give away removed property, tolesh. But if it's mechuber, he can't give that away because he wants the son to have that. Okay. I think we touched on this at some point earlier. Hiniach banim gdolim. A father leaves over adult children, viktanim. So you have adult children and little children. So now, ein hagdolim is parnasin al yidei aktanim, velo aktanim nizonim ela al hagdolim, ela cholkin b'shava. So before all the land gets split up, so the older children, they want certain things. They want clothing and the younger kids want things for themselves. So we don't allow the older kids to take what they need right off the bat. And then, let's say that he does a lot of property and a lot of clothing. And so we don't allow the older kids to just take what they want off the bat and then leave everyone else with, less. Rather, everyone has to divide equally. Everyone has to divide equally. So the younger children are allowed to prevent the older children from taking what they need. Maybe the older children have more needs than them. I don't know. They want all 10 suits of the father. They're businessmen. Younger children don't need that. So no, you can't do that. Everything has to be divided up equally. Okay. Now, cryptic line the Gemara is going to ask on it. Nasu agdolim, yisu aktanim. Cryptic line. The older children get married. The younger children can also get married. If the young children want to get married the same way the older children got married, they got $1 million haul. We also want $1 million haul. Then we don't listen to them. So the Gemara is going to ask, what are we talking about? Meaning that children are trying to get married from the estate of the father. So the first line told us the older children and the younger children can both get married from the estate of the father. The next line says, if the young children want to get married like the older children, then we don't listen to them. So that's going to be the Gemara is going to ask what that means. Okay. Whatever he left them, that's what he left them. And you to divide up, you can't just take what you need for your, because you had a wedding 2 weeks after the father died for $100,000 haul. You can't take a lot of that money and leave the younger kids with much less. You have to divide it all equally.
From this, it actually looks like all the children got married before the father died.
You're going to say, yeah, the Gemara is going to say. Yeah, I think. So, okay. Hiniach banos gdolos. Adult girls were left over. Viktanos and younger girls. Ein agdolos misparnas ayde iktanos, lo iktanos agdolos, ela cholkos b'shava. Same thing. The older girls, they can't take the 10 dresses that they want, beautiful Shabbat dresses off the bat. No, every clothing, everything has to be divided up equally. And so too for the Ktanim, they can't take what they need and leave the adult children with less. Has to be 100% equal division. Same thing. Nasuk dolos yisuk tanos. Cryptic line. Older girls got married, so then the young girls can get married. The younger girls want to get married in the same fashion of the older girls. We don't listen to them. This is a stringency of daughters over sons. Why? What's a stringency? Habanos nizanos alabanim, the ain nizanos alabanos. We're going to see that daughters have to be supported from the money of the sons. Sons can be left to go out knocking door to door. They do not have to be supported from the money of the daughters. Hamarava, Hayi Gadol, achi delavash ve'ichse mi beisa, mai de avid avid. If the oldest brother takes the $5,000 suit and goes and takes it for himself, says Rava, mai de avid avid. You know what? Meaning the estate has not been divided up yet. He goes right into the closet, takes his father's most expensive suit, goes and takes it for him. And now the brothers come and say, hey, we want that. At least let's sell it and split it. Too bad. Ma'id avid avid. Says the Gemara. The Mishnah says not that way. The Gedolim can't take things at the expense of the young children. It has to be all divided equally. So why does the son who takes the most expensive suit of the father, why does that work? There's a big difference. Very interesting. Masnisin besircha. The Mishnah is dealing with literally, I think, like an idle person, meaning a person who's not involved in the estate of the house. He's sitting back and relaxing. But the son who's involved in the overseeing the estate of the house, he has business meetings. He has to go and deal. Well, we have a couch now. What do we do with the couch? We need to sell it. Well, who's going to do that? The oldest brother. He's taking charge of the family. He is allowed to go and take that suit. However, the son that's not involved in dealing with the business dealings, he cannot take that suit. Says the Gemara, Sircha Pshita. Okay, obviously, a guy that's doing nothing, like, why does he have a right? Like, there's no novelty in that. Of course he can't take it. Mahu detema nicha lehu delo ni novel kamashlan. Okay, but maybe he wants to take it because, right now he has a very bad wardrobe. And it's like, it's really a bizarre, it's really a disgrace to walk around with his kind of clothing. So maybe we should let him take that suit and then it's going to be his. Kamashlan, no. If it's for business and you're the business guy, you can take it. If it's because you don't want to look good, you don't look so bad on your first date, I'm sorry, you can't have it. You tell the first date,
Not look disgusting.
That's right, don't look disgusting, yeah. So Nasuk Dolim Yisuk Tanim, the older sons can get married and so could the younger sons. Ma'ikam, what are you saying? When could we, yes, let the Kanim get married from the money? When can we not? Rabbi Yehuda Hakikam, like this. Nasuk Dolim la'achar mitzvah avihem. So the older son got married after the father died. Where did he get the money? The father's estate. So that's his wedding cost $25,000. Yisuk tanim la'achar mitzvah avihem. Then we allow the younger children to also get married from the money from the father's estate. However, if they got married in the life of the father, and that wedding cost $350,000 for that wedding. So, and now the father died, and now it's time for the younger children to go get married. I also want the same wedding hall. We say, sorry, buddy, ain't shomin lahen. We don't have that money right now. If you're going to take that money for the social hall, no one else will get enough money. So he said, oh, but my older brother did it. Well, Hashem runs the world. Sorry, ain't showing them. We don't listen to them. Whatever the father leaves over, they get divided up equally. So he left over daughters that were older, that were younger. This is going to take us through the next Amud. Rabbi, teach us. A wife, before she got married, borrowed money. So she borrowed $5,000, and then she went and she did what she needed to do. She used it all up. Now what happened? The Amda V'Nises. She went and she got married. Now hold on. The creditor comes knocking on the door. I need $5,000. So, very fundamental question. Very interesting. How do you view the husband when he marries the wife? Now we're talking now about what we call Nichse Malug. Nichse Malug is her property. She brings in, and she will get back after the marriage is over. Malug means to pluck. The husband's allowed to pluck from the property, meaning he could use it, but at the end of the day, it belongs to the wife. So now, that he's using it, how do we view him? We view him as a lokeach have or yoresh have. Is he viewed as a purchaser? He has the right to the wife's property as long as they're married. So is he like he purchased that property?
Mhm.
He did neither. He got married. But how do you understand it? He's like a purchaser, or he's like a yoresh, or he's like a inheritor. What's the difference? So lokeach have, what's going to happen now? If this loan was an oral loan, this woman borrowed money, it was not written down. It was an oral loan. Milva al peh ain't a government alakuchos. The rule is that if you're going to lend money out and borrow money, and you're not going to do it in a document, what's going to happen? If you're owed money, you cannot go collect from the buyers. So if you're owed $5,000, you knock on the person's door and says, give me my money. So I don't have any money. He said, okay, but when you owed me money, you sold your property? He said, yeah. He said, okay. Then the guy goes to that guy and he says, listen, the guy that sold your property owed me money and I can collect the land from you now, right? The general rule is a creditor can go and collect from property that was sold by his borrower, right? Because he needs his money back. But that's only if he has a document. If he loaned it orally, why? Because it's much less substantial. We say, why did you? The lekuchos, the buyers, it's not fair to them. Anybody who buys property is at risk of losing it all because maybe the person they just bought from owes money to people. So if it's an oral loan, we don't allow you to just go take from the buyers. If it's documented, then the buyers could look into it. Before you buy property, you can ask the guy, you have any documents? And and they can look into it, but orally. So now, this lady borrowed money orally, right? There was no documents. The rule is that her creditors now, the ones that she owes money to, cannot come and collect from the lekuchos. If you view the husband as a buyer, it's like he bought the property. The guy can't come and collect from the husband. An oral, a loan that was never written down, we do not allow the person to go collect from any property that was sold, during the time of when they were owed money. If he's a yoresh, well, then the guy is owed money. Oh, dilma yoresh, I mean, why should inheritor lose out? The father is owed money. The father dies. His inheritor can go and collect the money. There was no document. Who cares? He's owed money. So if you view the husband like a buyer, then the guy cannot collect money, right? So the woman owes $5,000 to Ruvain, and Ruvain comes collecting from this wife's husband, John. So John, your wife owes me money. He said, listen, the rabbis told me I'm not an inheritor. I'm viewed like a buyer. He said, oh, you're a buyer? I'm taking your property. Or they say, listen, I'm not viewed as a buyer. I'm viewed as an inheritor. So other way around. If he's viewed as a buyer, he said, I'm sorry, go fly a kite. But if I'm viewed as an inheritor, then you can take the property. So how do you view a husband? Is he like a buyer of the property or like an inheritor? So let's see. We're going to bring a proof and then another proof. Let's see. Amar le Tanina, look at our Mishnah. This is why it's here. Look at our Mishnah. We should learn from our Mishnah. Tanina, nasuk dolos, yisuktanos. Older daughters get married. Younger daughters can also get married from the money of the estate. Now, says the Gemara, let's read the Mishnah like this. Ma'ilav nasuk dolos libal. The older girls got married to a husband. Okay, that's obvious. Yisuktanos mibal. Now, the leftover money, the younger daughters, they're getting married mibal from the money of their older sister's husband. Meaning, the older sister had money and she got married. Now they haven't divided up the estate yet, so she got married now, and now the husband can use the money, right? And right now we're understanding the younger daughter gets married from which money? From the husband of her older sister, from her brother-in-law. Now hold on, you could use his money. If you could use his money, that means we view him like a buyer. We view him like an inheritor, not like a buyer, right? He's viewed like an inheritor. Yisuk tanos mibal. If you're yisuk tanos from the money of the husband, so that means like we view the husband like an inheritor, and therefore the younger daughter says, "Listen, our father left us a lot of money, $100,000. Right now, the it hasn't been divided up yet. So now the older daughter's money goes to who? She's bringing money into the marriage. That's called nechsei malod. She's bringing her portion of the inheritance into the marriage. Who's in charge of that money? The husband. So now, does the husband, does he have to give any of that money to the younger daughter or not? So if he's like a buyer of the property, so sorry, if he's like an inheritor, then he has to give. Says the Gemara, lo, nasuk dolos lebal, yisuk tanos lebal. Don't read it that the younger daughters got married from the money of the husband. It means they also got married to a husband. Don't read the Mishnah that they're using the money from the husband. Mibal. The older daughters got married to a husband, and the younger daughters got married to a husband. And don't read anything more into that. Don't make any. That's it. So now says the Gemara, Ini, is that true? The Hatani Reb Chia nasuk dolos lepal yisuk tanos mibal. But Rav Chia taught in a brisa not that way. So once Rav Chia, we have him explicitly saying mibal, and the younger daughters used the money from the older daughter's husband, then you should read our mission that way also, instead of making a machlokes. So what do you see from there? The husband is viewed as a inheritor because the younger daughter can take money from her brother-in-law. Says the Gemara, no. Maybe this is a whole different case. Dilma shayni parnasa, the islay kala. That maybe parnasa is different because the islay kala. Meaning, the reason why we don't allow in general people to collect from a loan that was not documented is because it doesn't have a voice. No one knows about it. Documentation, people know about. It's filed away. You can go look into it. When it comes to parnasa, when it comes to, parnasa meaning money left over from the father, that everyone knows about. I mean, that the husband knows that his wife, her inheritance is, he knows about it. He knows that there's money left over. He knows that there's a lot of sisters left over. So he knows that there's money that might be taken away from him. So therefore, that's different than every other case. Every other case, we have a regular creditor. There we have a question. Do you view him like an inheritor or like a yorish? But this case is going to be different. Second. Yeah, so don't bring me a proof that maybe he's an inheritor. Maybe he's like a buyer. And when you get married, and how much the husband's going to support you and how much the wife brings into the marriage, that's like being documented. People know about it. Fine. So Amalei Rapapa Rava said, you have this question, how you view a husband, is he like a purchaser or like an inheritor? Lav Hanu de Shalach Ravin Be'igarte. Didn't Ravin send this exact question in a letter? Meaning, you should read this letter. Ravin already addressed this question. How did Ravin address this? By the following case. Mi shemes, a person dies. V'hiniach almana ubas. He leaves over a widow and a daughter. Almanaso, his widow, is nizonis minachasav. She, right, part of the ksuba, she's going to be sustained from his property. Fine. Nises habas. Now the daughter, the father died. Now he has a daughter. The daughter goes and gets married. What happens? Almanaso nizones minachasav. So the almana is still being supported from the husband's estate. Fine. Mesa habas. The daughter now dies. So before the daughter died, there were two women being supported from the husband's estate. His former wife and his daughter. The daughter now dies. So now the almana wants to keep being supported from the estate. However, now this husband inherits the daughter. So the daughter brought in all of her property into the marriage, right? So the almana is being supported from that. The daughter, right? The daughter brought everything into the marriage. Now the daughter died. The husband now inherits the daughter. So now, but the almana is still owed money. So she's owed money that now is in control of the husband. So do you view the husband like a inheritor or like a buyer? So it says, what's the halacha? The halacha is Mesa Habas, the daughter died. What happens? Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Achoso Rabbi Yossi Chanina. Al Yado Haya Maisa. He had this happen to him. He actually had a case where this happened to him. And what was the halacha? Amru Almanaso Nizones Minachasav. The almana gets supported from the husband's property now. The husband who inherited his daughter the almana can still collect from over there. If you view the husband as an inheritor, that's why an almana can be supported. The husband inherits it. If he inherits it, the creditor can always come to an inheritor and take the money. But if you view the husband as a buyer, he purchased it from his wife. Why should the almana be supported from the husband's estate? Husband can say, "I'm sorry, that's I'm not obligated to give you any money." Yeah. Right, because the Rashbam here brings the Gemara in Gittin says that we don't money that's owed for the sustenance of a woman and daughters is not removed from other property, right? So we don't go to the father's debtors, I mean the people that he owed money to, and the people that he sold property to, or that owe him money. We don't go to them and collect because then no one's ever going to buy stuff, because we're always just they're going to buy stuff, and then the guy that sold me money died and now he owes his children $10 million. They're going to come to everybody and say, and now collect. So we don't allow that. Okay, so we should have a proof that the husband's viewed as an inheritor and not as a purchaser. Not so simple. Amar Abaye, I don't understand. Ilav de Sholach Ravin. Your whole thing is based off this letter that Ravin sent. But if not for Ravin's letter, we wouldn't know the halacha. How could it be? It's a Mishnah. It says in Bechoros, we know the ancestral fields, right? When they get sold, they go back to their original owner every 50 years, by the Jubilee year. So now, these are things that don't go back. Biyovel. HaBechora, the part of the Bechor that the Bechor gets, that doesn't go back. That was given as a gift. Hashem called it a gift. So a gift is yours, not a sale, but a gift is yours. So now, the Hayoresh as Ishto, one who inherits his wife, also, that doesn't go back during Yovel. So now, if we viewed the husband as a buyer, so maybe that which he bought, so to speak, right, that which when he got married, that should now revert back every 50 years. So the Rashbam points out, even though biblically the husband is the inheritor, but if the Rabbanon viewed him as a purchaser and therefore protecting the property, that that no one can come collect from him, so if that would be true, his land that he inherited from his wife should go back every 50 years. From the fact that it doesn't go back, it must be that we view him as a inheritor and not a purchaser. Because if he was a purchaser, it would go back. Yeah, sorry, could be I mixed it up.
Oh.
So, but it does not go back, therefore it's not a purchase. It's more of a inheritance. Oh no, I'm gonna try 10%. Why?
It seems like an inheritance would go back. I'm not reading that here. I'm just thinking to myself.
But only sales go back every 50 years. That's the rules.
Okay, that's
Inheritance don't go back. Then nobody would. Guy got $10 million estate. The next year's Yovel has to give it all back. No. Yeah. Okay. We'll get to Bechoros when we get there. So, but for now, that's what we're saying. He inherits his wife. It doesn't go back. Amrle Rava Bahash the Shalach says, Rava told him, now that he sent this letter, someone's asked. So we're asking now, if not for this letter, right? Abaye asked, if not for this letter, we wouldn't know it's a Mishnah. The Mishnah seems to say that it doesn't go back. Therefore, he's viewed as an inheritor and not a purchaser. Amrle Rava, okay, but now he sent the letter, Miya Dinan, meaning even after he sent it, he's asking what, before the letter you wouldn't know this case? He's asking, and after the letter you do know this case? He says, oh, what do you mean? We have a question. We're going to ask a contradiction now. Amar of Yossi Bar Chanina Ba'usha Yiskinu Ha'isha Shemachar Nixnei Malog, a woman who sold her Nixnei Malog, which is the property that she brought into the marriage, which she gets back after the marriage. If she sold that property during the marriage, which she's technically allowed to do because it's hers, B'chaya Ba'ilo Mesa, and now she died, so really too bad on the husband. He should have no rights to collect the property. It's her property. He was allowed to use it as long as she's alive. But they made an establishment in Usha, they made an enactment that the husband, Habal Motzi Miyad Lekuchos, the husband can go and remove that property back from the person that he sold it to. Special enactment done at the Kana that was done, and we call it the Kana's Usha, that the husband's actually allowed to go and get that property back. So now, says the Gemara, so what do you see from there? That the husband can go and collect. So therefore, the husband is viewed as a buyer. Meaning, when the husband got married, he viewed as a buyer. Therefore, the property that he bought, so to speak, got sold. He can go get it back. 1 second. If he was an inheritor, then what would happen? Oh, if he's an inheritor, then he only gets the things he inherits, meaning when she dies. So right, if he's an inheritor and he's only going to inherit property that really belongs to him, but the property that's really hers, right? I guess that property she still owns, that she's allowed to sell, and he doesn't have an ability to collect that. See, the Rashbam fills us in. So we're going to read the Rashbam for a second. So he says, Ela Iyamers, meaning the Rashbam fills in the Gemara for us. Ela Iyamers Baal Benichse Isha Yorish Have, if he's actually considered an inheritor from the time that they got married, so then Amayim Apik, Lama Tiknu Be'usha, that a Baal can take it out. Inheritors can't remove property that their father sold. In general, inheritors can't remove property that their father sold. So too here, inheritors can't remove property that their wife sold. But if he's viewed as a purchaser, meaning from the fact that in Usha they made an establishment that you can go and take out property, that means that in Usha they viewed the husband as a buyer, and therefore they allowed him to go and remove the property. Because if he was viewed as an inheritor, then they wouldn't do such a thing. Because an inheritor, whatever the person they're inheriting from sells, is a good sale. So says the Gemara, you're right. It's not clear what it is. So the rule's like this. Ela Maravashi, see we get this in a minute. Ela Maravashi, Baal Shavinu Rabbanan, Kiyorish, Shavinu Rabbanan, Kilokech. Both. The husband's both an inheritor and a purchaser. Depends on when it's good for him. The Heika, the Tabale, Avdule, when it's good for him. So Gabi Yovel, we want the land, he shouldn't lose the land. So therefore, Shavinu Rabbanan, Kiyorish. You view like an inheritor. Mishum Psei the Didei for his own loss. But Gabi Rav Yossi Bar Chanina, that he can go and get money out, Shavinu Rabbanan Kilokeach, Mishum Psei the Didei. But that was the case earlier. So in that case, we want the husband to be like a lokeach, that he can go and get money back. That's owed to him. Yes, you'll give me a thumbs up. It's 7 o'clock already? Oh, okay.
46.
So we'll finish the parak on Shabbos. There's a Shem.
Dashko. Nice.